Very good. Here we have a Sicha of the Rebbe. Parshas Vayikra, Parshas Chodesh, Rosh Chodesh Nisan, 1991. And this year, it was Parshas Vayikra, and it was also Rosh Chodesh Nisan. Okay, so this is a little bit different, the situation we're in, than it was back then, because then they took out 3 Sefer Torahs. They take out, one to read Parshas Vayikra, and another one, the Parshas Chodesh. Chodesh is Elechem Rosh Chodesh. And because it was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, so they took out another Sefer Torah, which was read Rosh Chodesh. So they took out 3 Sefer Torahs, and here the Rebbe talks about the importance of taking out 3 Sefer Torahs, what it really means. Okay, so this I want to skip over. I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but nevertheless we will. Okay, but now we are in the month of Nisan. By the way, I want to remind you both, don't forget to say the Nasi. Every day you say the Nasi, right, of the day. Don't forget to say the Nasi, and forget also for sure, don't forget to say Yalav Yavo in prayers. According to what it says, the Rebbe, that's what we read this Shabbat, right? That was Parshat HaChodesh. The mitzvah Rishona, this is the first commandment that the Jewish people were given. Mitzvah Daika Velo Torah. It doesn't say this is the first Torah that God gave to the Jewish people. This is the first commandment the Jewish people got. What does it mean, the first commandment? I mean, there were commandments before. There's the commandment of Peru Ravu. There were commandments that God gave to Adam. But the first commandment that God gave to the Jewish people as a people, they were still actually in Egypt. This is before they got to Mara and other places where God gave them a few commandments. The first commandment what the Jewish people got, and they were still in the land of Israel, still in the land of Egypt before they got out, was the mitzvah of sanctifying the month. And you know what it means, sanctifying the month. The Jewish calendar goes depends very heavily on the days of the month, but it also depends very heavily on the seasons of the year. So in order to synchronize that the months and the seasons come out the same, Nisan especially, because Nisan always has to be B'chodesh Aviv, it always has to come out in the spring. So in order, like the Arabs, they have their calendar only goes according to the month. So their month, it could be the same month that they have, the month of whatever is Glup or whatever their month is. Glup can come in sometimes in winter, and it comes down in the summer. It can go right, and by the like in America and the other those calendars, it has absolutely nothing to do with the moon. The first day of June, there can be a full moon, there can be a half moon, there can be a middle moon. The first day of the month has no connection to the moon whatsoever. Only goes according to the sun. The Jewish calendar goes according to the sun and the moon. So the very important, okay, the seasons, you can look and you can see what season it is, but what about the months? Well, no problem. You look and see the month. Which is not so simple. You have to know when the month starts. It could be the month starts in 1 or 2 days. Sometimes there's 2 days of darkness. After the old month, there can be 2 days of darkness. So as soon as you don't see the moon, that's it. The last month is finished, right? Is it really? Are you sure it's finished? Maybe it's not finished. Maybe the moon is still there. You just can't see it. So really, as soon as the moon is gone, the last month is not finished. The last month still continues on. When does the last month end? When you see the sliver of the new month. As soon as you see the sliver of the moon of the new month, that's when the month starts. That's when the month starts. So when is the sliver of the moon? Sometimes you can see what looks like a sliver of the moon. Sometimes it's a little. So it says that God showed Moshe exactly what the moon looks like, what a new moon looks like. A sliver of the moon, what it looks like. When people see this, is then they Then they run to the Beit Din, to the court, and the court questions them, interrogates them. And then if it meets the qualifications, then they say, okay, we sanctify the month. The month begins today. It can be one of 2 days. Okay, that's this commandment of a chodesh. It's the calculations to make are very complicated. They're very complicated, especially now. Complicated. Okay, but that was the first commandment given to all of the Jewish people. God spoke to Moses and said, tell the Jewish people, this is their first commandment. The month is in your hands. Mitzvah Rishonah, this is the mitzvah, this is the first commandment given to the Jewish people. It doesn't say this is the first aspect of Torah given to the Jewish people. You should know the chiluk between Torah and mitzvah. What is the difference between Torah and the commandments? Even though the commandment of Kiddush HaChodesh is very complicated and it's in Torah, but nevertheless, it's not called the first piece of Torah that was given to the Jewish people. The first commandment. The difference between the Torah and the commandment is the Torah is above the world. Torah is above the world, like we just finished learning in the Mimer. The Torah is connected to the essence of God. Like I told you, we'll get to that. The Torah is above the world. The world was created from the Torah. Moshiach, which is not the case, commandments. The whole thing of the commandments is that God commands people what to do in this world in order that man and the world should be joined to God. The word mitzvah means tzavta, connection, that a man and the world could be connected with God. From this is understood that our commandment, Chodesh Elochem, is the first commandment, that the intention is, what does it mean? In the miraculous conduct of the month of Nisan, the whole month of Nisan is from the word nes, miracle. The month of Nisan is the month when God did everything. He took us out of Egypt, he split the sea, the month of Nisan. This makes, when we take out the 3 Sefer Torahs, and Shabbos, Rosh Chodesh, Nisan. But the whole idea of the mitzvah Rishona, even though the month of Nisan is a month of miracles, but the whole thing of the mitzvah is, it's not just serving God in ways that are above the world, like learning Torah, which is above the world, because the whole idea of the Torah is expressed in Simchas Torah, more than on Shabbat and Rosh Chodesh Nisan. But Hanhaga Nisid Nimshachet B'choderet Ba'avoda B'Inyani Olam B'Maisa B'Pol. What's Simchat Torah? Simchat Torah is the holiday we are happy with the Torah. What are we happy with? We don't sit and learn the Torah on Simchat Torah. We dance with it. So really, the Torah also is supposed to be in the world. But the main thing of the Torah is godliness. Shahanhaga nisit shenimshacha b'choderet ba'avoda b'nyani ha'olam b'maisa b'pol. The whole idea of the Torah is that it reminds us that there was big miracles given to us on Mount Sinai, but it permeates into the physical world. Like it's expressed when it says at Torah Zelachem, this is the first mitzvah which is given in to the Jewish people. Right, so that's the idea of mitzvahs. Mitzvahs, especially the main thing of the mitzvah, even though we have to remember that it's from God, but the main thing of the mitzvah is physical in the world. The main thing of the Torah is that it's from God. Mitzvot are not so much a thing as being above the world like Torah. Mitzvah is Maisa B'Pol Benyani Olam in the world. Ela Sha'avoda B'Maisa B'Pol Benyani Olam Ein Al Derech HaRegil, but the conduct that you get from the mitzvahs are not in a normal way, just like Hanagatiri, like eating and drinking. But what you're doing when you're doing a commandment, it's something like a miracle. You're doing a godly thing in this world. Namely, you're elevating yourself above the world in the world. That's what a commandment is. And this is especially on Shabbat Rosh Chodesh Nisan, in the month of, this was in Tafshin Nun Aleph, Erenu Niflot, I will show you miracles. And especially the miraculous Shabbat, which was before this. This was right around when the Iron Curtain fell, and there was all sorts of miracles. Saddam Hussein shot all these missiles into Israel, and none of them hit anything. Nobody was hurt. It knocked down whole buildings. B'shana Zuseder Regil, hu ba'ofen shel niflot. And this year, said the Rebbe, this is Tafshin Nun Aleph, and it continues up to now. There's amazing miracles that happen. From this, it's understood that in Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Nisan, there is a special giving of power and often chazaka, because they took out 3 Sefer Torahs. Good. In our parasha, we took out only 2. But today we took out the 3rd. So this is the 3rd. Ba'avoda, in a way of conducting oneself in a miraculous way in this world, to a way that's an elevation which is incomparable. Even in regard to the miraculous way of Nisan all the other years. There's a basic principle in Judaism, Mailim B'Kodesh. In other words, everything becomes holier and holier. Good. Oh, maybe we don't see it, but one of the reasons is we don't see it is because we don't really appreciate what holy means. It says every year, in fact, things are holy. The essence of what holiness is in Judaism is taking things that are above normal and bringing them into the world. That's above normal. That's really miraculous. The Yesh Lomer, we can also say that the fact that we take out these 3 Sefer Torahs, on Shabbat we took out 2, and today we took out another one, and this year the Rebbe, we took out 3 on that Shabbat. In the way of, is especially when you read from these 3 books. What do you read in the 3 books? Like I say, us it's also relevant because we read 2 of them yesterday. We read the portion of Shabbat, and we wrote HaChodesh HaZelachem, and today we read about the regular Rosh Chodesh portion. On the pasuk, when it says HaChodesh HaZelachem, that's what we read yesterday. The rabbis say, Misha Bachar B'Yaakov Ubanov, and when God chose Jacob and his sons, Kava Rosh Chodesh Shel Geula. It says over there in the Midrash that when God created the world, so he chose the month of Tishrei. But when God chose the Jews, so he made the month of redemption, miracles. The month of Nisan is not just miracles for what God did, but it's also a month of miracles of what God is going to do. Just like God redeemed us, took us out of Egypt. No one believed we would get out. And so it's also going to be in the future redemption, which should be right now, in even a more miraculous way. What does this mean? Yitzia, and that's the purpose of the Rebbe. The Rebbe is the Moshe Rabbeinu, and he's telling us, here it is. Yitzia, going out, Mia Medina v'Hagbala, going out from any limitations or any preconceptions, the Avoda Regila, on normal serving God, Ba'ofen Shel Hanaga Nisit, in a way of miraculous conduct. What does this mean? Just take a simple example. A person puts on tefillin. You know what tefillin are? Sure, it's a commandment. You do it. You're a Jewish person. You put it. You have a sign. Other religions have their signs. We have our thing. Other things, right? Wrong. Totally wrong. That's true. Other religions also true. They do have their signs. This is true. And we have our sign. Yes, true, 100%. But the fact of the matter is, when you put on tefillin, you're actually like standing in Mount Sinai. It's like going into the tabernacle, like we said before, the Holy of Holies. You're actually connecting directly and doing what God wants. You are becoming a limb of God. Do you feel this? Think about it? Maybe. So it says, the Rebbe says, this year, you should not only think about it, you should also try to feel it. It should be a miraculous thing. In fact, everything that you do, that's the whole idea of a chodesh zelechem. Chirush, be a new person. This is the power of the Jews. Hemshech haparsha binyan korban Pesach. Then it continues talking about in a chodesh zelechem. God says to the Jewish people, "This is your month," and then afterwards, God says about the sacrificing the Pesach offering in Egypt. Right? They take the blood, they put it on the doorposts, and then they have to take it from the 10th day of the month. These things they did it only when they were in Egypt. Al Shema Dilug, but Pesach means because of the jumping, the Sicha and the leaping. Avoda ba'ofen shel Sicha b'dilug, serving God in a way of jumping. L'maylam medir v'agbala hanaga nisit. We have to realize who we are. That we're creations of God. Higher than that, we're Jews. The way we act in should be a godly, a miraculous way. God wants us to act in normal things. What does it mean in a miraculous way? That we become like beams of light and we're elevated up to the upper worlds or something. We can see the future. No, it means that we connect to God, the Creator in the creation, everything we do. That's the idea of a chodesh zelechem and the idea of Pesach, jumping, leaping, becoming a totally new human being. The second, what we read today, is Rosh Chodesh, talking about Rosh Chodesh, a new month. That's the reading that we read today. Chirush, this is a new month. That's what we read today. This is even an addition, a novelty to what we usually serve God. Like it says, the days of the week depend on the sun, that it shines constantly. Did I turn it off? No. That the sun goes constantly with no changes. This is regular, normal service of God, serving God. A natural way of serving God that doesn't change. The month, this depends on the moon. The moon is always changing and it becomes new. Especially Rosh Chodesh, suddenly things start to become light. It lights up the darkness. It becomes higher, until finally the moon becomes complete. Now this idea of the moon becoming complete, this is very, very, if you want to call it, symbolic of the future redemption. This is serving God in a way of mosifim kal chatam, that we have the extra prayer that we make on Rosh Chodesh, musafim, we have a musaf prayer, adding on a miraculous way of a chidush. Okay, so now here we go. Ready? Let's understand what's happening over here. The Rebbe is trying to explain to us who we are. And the Rebbe is trying to explain to us that we can't think in normal ways and we can't really even act in normal ways. Who we really are and what we really are is we are servants of Hashem. God took us out of Egypt, but he took us out of Egypt in a jumping way. This is the same thing. We have to look at the world in a totally different way. I spoke to a good friend of mine. Avi Piamenti, he pointed out a very interesting thing to me. He said, look, when the Jews got out of Egypt, everything changed. Everything changed. The surrounding changed, and the food they got from heaven, and suddenly they weren't slaves anymore, and everything around them changed. They were surrounded by clouds of glory, and God was leading them, and Moses was leading them going through the desert. There was a big cloud of fire in the nighttime, and everything changed. But they personally did not change. Surrounding them, they were rich. It said they were wealthy. They had money. You couldn't believe how much wealth that they had. They took out of Egypt, and then after they crossed the sea, they got even more wealth than what they took out of Egypt. So they were 3 times as wealthy there. In Egypt, they had absolutely nothing. And now all of a sudden they were multi-billionaires. Every single Jew says that they had, 60 white the donkeys laden with jewels and what. But everything changed around. Right? It's like taking some bum from whatever, the mental institution or something like that just sits in the corner and talks to himself, and suddenly making him into the biggest genius of the world, multi-billionaire. Everyone's coming to him for advice, and he's, can you do such thing? That's what it was. Did it change the Jews? Not at all. Did not change them with one iota. They wanted to keep going back. They didn't want the Torah. They said, Moshe, you get it. Good. They had terrible tests too, terrible difficulties, but nevertheless. On the other hand, we had the story that was Yosef and his brothers. Yosef, when his brothers came to down to Egypt, and Yosef was this really hard, the sadistic leader that took their brother from them, and their brother was caught with a cup, and they thought, wow, this is it. We're in the worst situation possible. Yosef has all of us, and he's calling us all spies, and he's saying that we're all liars, and what's going to be, we're all finished. All of a sudden, Yosef just said, I'm your brother. That was it. Just changed everything. Nothing physical changed. They were in the same dungeon, in the same whatever it was, wherever they were, and exactly the same. He just said 3 words: I am Yosef, your brother. Ani Yosef. He just said, all of a sudden, everything changed. They were at the top of the tops. The king of the world was their brother. They were elevated. That's what the Rebbe is trying to do. He's trying to give us a word to make us realize who we are. And who we are is that we're servants. Says that's the idea of Chodesh Zelachem, right? And that's the idea also of Rosh Chodesh that we read together. The third thing is Parshas Vayikra. That's what we're starting this year. Vayikra Moshe v'yadaber elav ba'oel moed, that God called to Moshe, and he called him from the tent of meeting. What does it mean? This idea of this reading, I know that God called to Moshe. This is a ray of godliness to Moshe, in order that by means of this he can elevate and be elevated and come into the tent of meeting. Before it says he couldn't go in. In Yanu Ba'avoda, but this is what does it mean to each and every one of us, that because the Torah is eternal and the Torah is relevant, all of these levels are relevant to each and every one of us, even now. Sheyesh b'kol adam, that there is every single human being, every single Jew, b'chinas Moshe, b'chinas dat, namely this level of awareness of God, feeling connection to God, shehu hamamshich b'chinas yichud or ein sof, that from this he can draw down the unity of godliness below. This feeling of God that every Jew has, this Moses inside of every Jew, this arouses him to serve God, and then God reacts. She is sure that it will be revealed, b'nefesh adam, first of all, in our souls. And our souls then become this level of Oel Moed, then they become a tabernacle. Oel Moed means v'no'adati. No'adati means this is where I meet with you. I make myself known. Otiot v'nodati, and also the letters of that. Again, I made myself known. You will know me. Hainu leida et Hashem, to know God. Shu chaya chayim, that God is the life of lives. The ein od milvado, and there's nothing except for God. Right? Like I just said, the example. Here the brothers, they figured that's it. They were finished. They were just going to be slaves the whole world. All of a sudden, Yosef said, I'm your brother, Yosef. All of a sudden, they realized, wow, we're the brothers of Yosef. This is the most amazing thing. Now we're worthwhile. Now we have a place in the world. We have that's the same thing. We don't know who we are. Like it says, Ro ataki ani ani hu. I am God. Even though that it says that in the future everyone will see God, Ra'u, everyone will see. Nevertheless, this power is in every single Jew, the kasher, to attach his thought to God, attaching your thought to the Creator. I am being created. I am being created for a purpose. Do we feel this? Start trying and you'll start to feel. Then eventually it'll come that we'll be able to see with fleshy eyes the oneness of God. The Rebbe is the Moshiach. The Rebbe is telling us that the time has come. We just have to open our eyes and see it. Something now we can see a little bit of the completion of the revelation that's going to be in the future. As God willing, we'll talk about more. It gets much, much more intense. The Rebbe is going to tell us, as we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. And now let's learn the Yom Yom for today. One second. Oh, there it is. Wrong word, Sicha. Today is the first day. We don't say Tachanun this whole month. After you say the Nasi, then you say Yehi Ratzon, which is printed in which is printed in the Torah or Siddur. Kohanim and Levim also say it because it says, what does it say in this Yehi Ratzon? If I am from the tribe of Yehuda, then right, this should be my day. If I'm it's as though I sacrifice the sacrifice. What about a Kohen and a Levi that they know that they're not from the tribe of Yehuda or Ruvain or whatever? It says, nevertheless, they say it also. My father instructed his brother-in-law, Rabbi Moshe Hornstein, he was a Kohen, his brother-in-law, who was a Kohen, to say, Yehi Ratzon, Rabbi Moshe Hornstein, to say Yehi Ratzon after the Nasi, knowing that even a Kohen or a Levi must say it, because this is talking to what's called Ibur. Ibur means sometimes a soul of one person can be included in the soul of someone else. Here is the footnotes if you want. The Nasi describes the offering brought by the prince, the leader of each tribe, during the 12 days of the direct dedication of the sanctuary. Ibur means, here it is, the undifferentiated state prior to the appearance of the organs. I don't think that's what it means. Okay. Ibur indicates an initial state of total merger coalescence. That's what he says. So he wants to say that all the souls are united one with the other. So in other words, every soul therefore is mu'ubar. It's all connected one to the other. As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Have a good day. Have a good month. And God willing, tomorrow we'll be dancing with Moshiach Now.